I stood there in the vast ballroom of Carrington Holdings, feeling like an outsider in this opulent setting. I am Ethan Carrington, 29 years old, just an ordinary electrical maintenance technician working day in and day out with coils of wire circuit breakers and the pungent smell of machine oil. And this was the domain of sleek suits, glasses of red wine sparkling under enormous crystal chandeliers. The party announcing my father Robert Carrington's retirement was held in Denver, the city he had turned into his own empire. I wore an old suit, one I had bought on sale 2 years ago, and it itched uncomfortably as if reminding me that I did not belong here. I scanned the room. The guests' directors from partner companies, a few local politicians along with high-level executives were chatting animatedly, their champagne glasses glistening under the lights. Every conversation seemed friendly, but beneath it lay clever calculations. I tried to find a secluded corner huddling next to the appetizer table with elaborate dishes whose names I did not know. My heart pounded not from anticipation, but from a vague fear that this evening would not go smoothly. My father Robert never missed an opportunity to display his power. And I, the youngest son, was always the tool for him to do so. Soft music from the live orchestra filled the air, the violin's shrill notes seeming to prolong the tension within me. I saw my mother, Linda Carrington, sitting at the central table wearing a simple black dress, her head bowed low, avoiding all eyes. She was always like that, silent and resigned like a ghost in her own home. I wanted to approach her, ask a few questions, but then decided against it. We had never been truly close. She loved my father blindly, and that made her overlook everything else, including me. Then, suddenly, the microphone crackled, drawing everyone's attention, and my father stepped onto the stage. He was 60 years old, but still robust, his silver hair slicked back, his eyes sharp as knives. Robert Carrington, chairman of Carrington Holdings, a massive construction and real estate conglomerate in Denver. He was a man of immense power, ruthless and ambitious, the type who could crush anyone in his way without batting an eye. I had seen him fire employees en masse over a minor report error, smiling as they begged and cried. Now he stood there, his voice resonating with confidence like a king bestowing favors. "Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues," he began, his tone deep and authoritative. "Today is a special day. After more than 4 decades building Carrington Holdings from nothing, I have decided to retire. Let me recount our journey." He spoke and everyone listened. He talked about the tough early days, how he borrowed, fought, and turned a small workshop into an empire. I stood there clutching a glass of water, trying to smile politely. But then came the most crucial part, the one I had dreaded since receiving the invitation. "And now I will bequeath all shares and assets to those worthy of succeeding me," he declared, his voice echoing through the room. "Jason and Nicole, my son and daughter, who have proven themselves through their work and dedication." My name was not mentioned, not a word. The hall fell suddenly silent, then murmurs erupted like waves. I felt eyes turning toward me. Some chuckled softly, covering their mouths as if watching a comedy. Others shook their heads, looking at me with blatant pity. My heart constricted as if squeezed by an invisible hand. How could he do this? I was his son, even if just an electrician. I had tried, worked hard, but to him it meant nothing. Jason, my older brother, the HR director of the company, stood up immediately. He was 35, tall and groomed, flashing the smug smile I despised. "Thank you, Father," he said loudly, clapping to lead the room. Congratulations poured in. People crowded to shake his hand as if he had just won an election. Jason had always been like that, scheming, knowing how to curry favor, and never treating me as a brother. From childhood, he had mocked me for tinkering with toy cars instead of learning business. And Nicole, my sister, 32. The communications director stood beside Father in a fitted red dress, her long curls gleaming under the light. She was cold, looking at me with obvious disdain, as if I were a stain on the luxurious carpet. No sympathetic glance, no comforting word. To Nicole, I was always the extra, the unworthy one bearing the Carrington name. But my father was not done. He turned his head, looking straight at me, his eyes flashing the familiar cruelty I had known since childhood. As for the youngest son, he said, his voice rising like pronouncing a sentence, "An electrician is not worthy of inheriting anything. He is just a disgrace to the Carrington lineage." His words cut into my heart like a knife. The room burst into laughter, echoing mixed with whispers. I bowed my head, my face burning hot blood rushing to my ears as if about to explode. The feeling of being stripped bare, humiliated in front of the crowd, made me want to vanish. My hand trembled the glass, nearly slipping. How could he say that, in front of everyone? I had no strength to retort, not a word. I just stood there, swallowing hard, tears welling, but I gritted my teeth to hold them back. This was not the first time he had done this, but this time it hurt more than ever. I tried to breathe deeply, but the ballroom air suddenly felt suffocating. People resumed chatting, but sneaky glances still poured toward me. Pity, curiosity, even glee at seeing someone at the bottom. I remembered long nights alone in the garage fixing broken things to forget the isolation in my family. My father had always seen me as a failure because I chose a different path, the path of manual labor instead of desk-bound power. Now his words echoed like a curse clinging to me. I clenched my fists, trying to stay composed. But inside was a storm-anger humiliation and a vague fear of the future. Could I continue standing here, or would everything collapse from this moment? Anxiety surged. I looked at my father once more, hoping for a flicker of remorse in his eyes, but saw only arrogance. I was deeply wounded standing there like a living statue amid the laughter and glittering lights. The party continued laughter, still echoing. But for me, that room was like a crystal cage where every glance had sharp edges. Those smiles were not joyful at all, just masks to hide their fear of being seen through. I felt hot breath on the back of my neck as if the entire hall was whispering about me. Poor kid. A real disgrace. He deserves it. My hands trembled. The glass of water now felt unbearably heavy, the liquid sloshing and nearly spilling. I wanted to scream, to rush to the stage and ask my father why, but my feet felt nailed to the cold marble floor. Anxiety made my heart pound in my ears. I glanced at my mother once more. She still bowed her head, twisting the hem of her black dress as if trying to make herself invisible. Why did she not say anything? Why did she not stand up even once to protect her son? Memories flooded back. Family dinners where she was always silent, serving food to my father and siblings, ignoring me like a ghost. Now that silence was like another knife deeper than my father's words. Jason was still laughing, his smug smile spreading across his face. He shook hands with one person after another, his voice booming. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I will not disappoint, Father. He glanced at me briefly, his eyes gleaming with victory as if saying, You have lost, little brother. Nicole stood beside him, her red dress glaring under the lights. She covered her mouth with a soft chuckle, then whispered something to a guest, surely about me. I felt my face burning hot, blood rushing to my ears, the surrounding laughter like a swarm of bees. The ballroom air suddenly became stifling, the scent of expensive perfume mixed with red wine making me dizzy. I thought of Rachel, my wife waiting at home. She would comfort me, hug me and say everything would be okay. But deep down, I was afraid that my father's words would spread, affecting our entire life. Would she still love a disgrace like me? Anxiety surging. I started moving my feet heavy as I headed toward the back door. I needed to get out of here. Needed the night air of Denver to breathe, to forget the humiliation gnawing at every fiber of my being. As I turned, I heard hurried footsteps from behind. Someone was running toward me, and then a familiar voice rang out firm like a hammer strike. "Stop! No one gets to laugh at the boy." The whole room fell silent. The laughter cut off as if choked by someone. I turned my head, my heart racing wildly. It was Uncle Frank Carrington. Uncle Frank Carrington. 55 years old, head of the company's maintenance department. The only uncle with a conscience left in this scheming family. He arrived late wearing a simple suit, his salt and pepper hair disheveled, his face flushed with anger. He stepped forward, his voice resolute, stopping the crowd that was laughing at me like a flock of crows. "Do you think this is a joke? A person being humiliated in front of so many just because of his job?" He shouted, his eyes sweeping the room, making some guests bow their heads to avoid them. Anxiety made it hard to breathe. I stood still, unable to believe my eyes. Uncle Frank Carrington had never intervened publicly like this. He was always quiet, teaching me repairs in the garage, sharing stories about living decently. But now he advanced, standing between me and my father like a protective wall. His gaze was steadfast, without a hint of fear, even though I knew he was facing his brother, the powerful boss. No one has the right to humiliate a person just because of their status. He declared, his voice echoing through the room. "Ethan is your son, Robert. He works hard fixing the things you all use every day without gratitude. He is not a disgrace. He is the real pride." The crowd murmured, a few nodding, but most stayed silent, waiting for my father's reaction. My heart pounded wildly, anxiety mixed with gratitude. Uncle was risking everything for me. Would father fire him on the spot, or would it explode into a huge argument? My father turned back, flashing a scornful smile, his eyes gleaming with hidden anger beneath a veneer of confidence. He stepped down from the stage one step, his voice sarcastic. "Oh, Frank, my dear brother. Still stuck in that lowly position, head of maintenance for years, and now you intervene." He paused, eyeing Uncle from head to toe, then laughed loudly. "Failures always pity failures." Those words were like a fuse. The room erupted in laughter again, echoing mixed with awkward applause from the sycophants. Jason bowed his head with a soft chuckle, his shoulders shaking as he tried to hold it in. Nicole covered her mouth, her eyes sparkling with delight, whispering to Jason, "Uncle Frank really is a fool?" My mother looked up briefly, then bowed her head again, her hand trembling as she held her wine glass. I felt my face burning hot once more. The humiliation doubled. Now not just me, but Uncle was dragged into it too. Anxiety rising high, I wanted to pull Uncle away, to scream that he should not lose his job for me. But the words stuck in my throat. But Uncle Frank remained steadfast, not backing down. He stood there broad-shouldered like an old soldier defending the last fortress. "Failure," he retorted, his voice calm but sharp as a blade. "Failure is when you use power to crush your own flesh and blood, Robert. Ethan is not a failure. He is the most decent man here, and you know it." The crowd fell dead silent again, the atmosphere tense enough that I could hear my own heartbeat. A few guests whispered, "He is right." But most still laughed along with my father. Father waved for security, his voice ice cold. "Take him out." My heart constricted, anxiety making me want to vomit. I feared Uncle would be dragged away like a criminal. But Uncle ignored it, turning to me, placing a hand on my shoulder, his eyes warm amid the storm. His hand was warm, carrying the familiar scent of machine oil from the days he taught me repairs in the garage by the South Platte River. "Nephew, do not let them bring you down," he whispered, nodding slightly like a final encouragement amid that deceitful party. In that moment, I felt a bit of strength return. Fleeting though it was, tears streamed down my cheeks. I nodded, my voice breaking. "Thank you, Uncle." Then I turned, walking away, my feet heavy as lead. Behind me were the laughter and awkward applause, my father's loud laugh. "Let us continue the party." I pushed the back door, the night wind of Denver rushing in cool but unable to dispel the unprecedented humiliation. Each step to the parking lot felt like an escape, my mind swirling with images of Uncle Frank standing up for me. Would he be okay? Father would not forgive. He would fire Uncle, do everything to make him disappear from the company. I sat in my old pickup truck, starting the engine. It roared crisply, but could not drown out the mocking laughter echoing in my head. The highway was pitch-black headlights flashing past Carrington Holdings billboards, each one reminding me of the empire I had been excluded from. I pulled over to the side for a moment, breathing heavily, hands gripping the steering wheel. Tears fell hot. Why, Father? What did I do wrong? Childhood memories flooded back times I sat alone in the garage, fixing toy cars while the family dined happily. Uncle Frank was the only one who came to get me, teaching me that value lay in skilled hands. Now he was paying the price for me. The drive home stretched endlessly, though it was only half an hour. I turned on the radio, but the music only irritated me more. I thought of Rachel, of our small apartment in the suburbs where she was waiting. We had married 4 years ago in a simple ceremony without my family. She once said, "You do not need them. You have me." But lately, things had changed. She often complained about our tight life, about friends with businessman husbands while I was just an electrician. "I love you, but we need a future," she had said. My heart constricted, anxiety and fear surging. Would tonight be the final straw? I parked in front of the house, the yellow streetlight illuminating the entrance. The window was lit, meaning she was not asleep yet. I took a deep breath, trying to smile, but my face was stiff. Opening the door and stepping in, the smell of pasta lingered, the dish she often cooked, but the atmosphere was strangely silent. "Rachel." "I am home," I called, my voice trembling. She sat at the dining table, her face expressionless, eyes red and swollen as if she had cried. Beside her was a paper, the divorce petition already signed, lying haphazardly on the old wooden table. My heart stopped. "What is this?" I asked, stepping forward, anxiety surging like falling into an abyss. Rachel stood up, her voice cold and weary. "Ethan, we cannot go on anymore. I cannot live with someone who has no future, no status." Her words cut like a knife, echoing in the cramped room. I looked at the paper, her signature clear the blank space for mine. "Why? Why are you doing this? We can talk about it." I tried to explain, my hand reaching to touch her shoulder. "The party was awful. My father humiliated me. But I will be okay. We will get through it together." But my words only made her angrier. Her eyes flared, tears streaming. "Get through? How many times, Ethan? You always promise. But what is the reality? Your father humiliated you in front of everyone. Your family abandoned you, and I am tired of living in that shadow." She threw her wedding ring onto the table, the metallic clink piercing. "I once loved you for your sincerity, but now I see clearly. You cannot change. I need a future, not a disgrace." Tears mixed with blame, she shouted, "You are a failure. Like your father said, I do not want to be part of it anymore." The argument escalated, words flying back and forth like a storm. I begged, "Do not go, Rachel. I love you. Think about the memories. Our wedding day, those trips to the mountains." She shook her head. "Memories do not sustain us, Ethan. I have waited long enough." Anxiety turning to desperation. I tried to hug her, but she pushed me away, pulling a suitcase from the bedroom, packed and ready as if waiting for this moment. "Goodbye," she said, her voice breaking, stepping out the door without looking back. The door slammed shut, the lock clicking, echoing. The house sank into deadly silence. I slumped at the table, staring at the divorce paper, my trembling hand touching the signature. The world had just collapsed. Honor shattered at the party. Family turning their backs. love vanishing in one night. I held my head, tears pouring, loneliness enveloping like darkness. Memories with Rachel flooded her smile on our first meeting nights, holding each other to sleep. Now it was just me alone in the cold house. I collapsed onto the floor, breathing raggedly, my heart aching. That night stretched endlessly, each second like a century. I thought of Uncle Frank, the only one left. Would he call, or had Father fired him? Anxiety and despair intertwined. I closed my eyes, praying dawn would bring hope. But deep down, I knew the storm was just beginning. That night, I could not sleep, sitting in the pitch-dark house with only the streetlight filtering through the thin window curtains. My heart raced, wildly anxious, as if waiting for another nightmare to strike. Childhood memories flooded back like a tide, sweeping everything away, plunging me into old, worn-out pain, but also the only remaining source of light. I saw myself, 8-year-old Ethan, standing in front of the dim garage of the large house in Denver. My hands were covered in grease, blackened and sticky, as I tried to fix the old toy car that my brother Jason had thrown away, sneering, "It is broken, that piece of trash." Laughter echoed from the living room, warm but distant as if from another world. My father, Robert, sat at the head of the table, his voice booming as he recounted a big contract he had just signed. My brother, Jason, 13 at the time, laughed along. "Dad, you are amazing. I will follow in your footsteps, become a big director." My sister Nicole, 10 years old, chimed in. "Me too." "Dad, I will manage everything." And me, I was his son, even if I was just an electrician. I was his flesh and blood, though to him it meant nothing. I had tried, worked hard, but to him it was worthless. The memories surged anxious, as if awaiting a different ending. But no, everything always ended in isolation. During those family dinners, I often sat at the end of the table like an uninvited guest. No one asked about me. My words always drowned in their laughter. Father would talk about the company. "Today I signed a $1 million deal. See how great I am." Jason would cheer. "Dad is a superhero." Nicole would laugh. "Dad is the king." And if I opened my mouth, "Today I learned how to connect wires at school," Father would interrupt. "Wires? Shut up. Do not ruin the meal." Linda would only serve food to her husband, and the older kids never once glancing at me or speaking up. "Mom, pass me a piece of chicken," I whispered once, my voice trembling with anticipation. She glanced over, but then turned away, serving Jason. "Eat more, son. You will be tired from studying tomorrow." My heart ached, tears silently falling into my plate. Why was Mom so silent? She loved Dad blindly. But why did she not love me? That memory made me sit up in the darkness, wiping tears. "Mom, I exist. Why do you not see me?" Once I brought home a certificate of merit, my hands shaking with excitement. "Dad," I got praised for fixing a science model at school. I ran in holding up the bright red paper. Father glanced at it, then tossed it on the table. "A certificate fixing a model. That is not an achievement, Ethan." Jason brought home a math award. Nicole won a speech contest. "Those are things to be proud of. You just go play in the garage." He turned away, smiling at my siblings. "You two are the future of Carrington." I stood there, the paper falling to the floor, tears streaming. "But I tried, Dad." No one heard. Jason smirked. "A fixing certificate." "Throw it away, bro," Nicole added. "Yeah, do not dirty the dinner table." Linda stayed silent, clearing up without looking at me. In that moment, I ran to the garage, crying alone, anxiously waiting for someone to comfort me. And then the sound of an old pickup truck echoed. Uncle Frank arrived. In times like that, I could only wait for Frank Carrington, the kind uncle who drove his old pickup to pick me up and take me to his small house by the South Platte River. "Uncle," I would cheer, running out to hug him. He would smile, his voice warm. "Nephew, how was today? Get in the truck. Let us go home and fix stuff." Back then he was younger, his hair not yet gray, his hands calloused from labor. He would teach me how to hold a wrench, connect wires, and most importantly, how to live decently in an unfair world. "Look at this, Ethan," he would say, holding the wrench. "Tighten it firm, but not too much or it will break. Life is the same. Patience, kid." I would sit beside him, hands greasy, laughing. "Uncle, I fixed it." "See," he would nod. "Great job. You have got golden hands." Those days with Uncle were the rare times I felt like laughing, eating dinner in a peaceful atmosphere. He would grill simple meat and we would sit by the river, the cool breeze blowing. "Tell me how things were at home today, kid." I would tell him, tears falling. "Dad said I do not fit in, Uncle." He would hug me. "Do not be sad, Ethan. Your dad is busy, but you are special. Real value is in hands that can create, not titles. I am proud of you." Frank always listened, teaching me patience, how to fix every little detail. "See this screw small but important." People are like that. Be kind to everyone no matter how they treat you. I would nod anxiously, asking Uncle, "Why are you not like Dad? Why stay in the garage forever?" He would smile sadly. "I chose this kid. Power changes people, but I want to live true. You will do the same. Stay strong." Memories of the small house by the river, the smell of machine oil and Uncle's laughter remain vivid in me, the only light illuminating my forgotten childhood. Now, in this pitch-dark house, I whisper, "Uncle, I miss you. You are like a second father to me." That memory brings a bit of warmth, but also anxiety. Would Uncle be okay after the party? Father will not forgive. He will make sure of it. I sit up looking at the clock. 3 a.m. The night stretches endlessly, memories continuing to flood like an old film reel. I lay there staring at the molded ceiling, trying to sleep, but in vain. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of Rachel dragging her suitcase out the door resurfaced, her voice echoing. "I am so disappointed in you, Ethan." Then my father's words from the party, a disgrace to the family line. My heart pounded wildly anxious, as if awaiting a knock on the door or a phone call bearing bad news. I thought about Uncle Frank. He had stood up for me, declaring to the crowd, "No one has the right to humiliate a person just because of their status." Father certainly would not let it go. He would fire Uncle, do everything to make him disappear from Carrington Holdings. "Uncle, please be okay," I whispered, my hands clutching the bedsheet tightly. That night I tossed and turned, childhood memories intertwining with present pain, like an endless loop with no escape. Dawn finally peeked through the curtains, but I still lay there exhausted and empty. The days that followed were hell. I tried to get up to keep living after the shock of losing everything. Honor trampled at the party. Family turning their backs long ago. Love shattered in a single night. Everything felt like a prolonged nightmare. I still went to work repairing wiring at small construction sites around Denver. Hands stained with machine oil, but my mind was always spinning. "You okay, Ethan?" a coworker asked, voice concerned. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." But I was not. Every evening returning home, the empty apartment seemed to swallow me whole, evoking Rachel's silhouette. I called her a few times, voice trembling. "Rachel, can we talk?" I was wrong. "I will change," but she only replied coldly, "Do not call any more, Ethan. I have made up my mind." Then she hung up. I sat silently in the darkness, heart-constricting tears falling before I could wipe them. I waited for a miracle, a text, a call, or just a word of forgiveness, but nothing came. Sometimes I imagined confronting my father, shouting, "Why did you do this to me?" But I knew he would only smirk like that night at the party. I tried contacting Uncle Frank, texting Uncle, "Are you okay? Did Dad do anything to you?" he replied briefly. I am fine, kid. Do not worry. Focus on living. But I knew he was hiding it. His voice over the phone sounded weary, as if under pressure. Have you been fired yet? I asked, anxious. He chuckled. Not yet, but your uncle's brother is furious. Do not overthink it, Ethan. Those calls were the only light, but they also made me worry more. After a long time trying to rise from the shock of losing everything, about 2 months, when winter began in Denver, with withered leaves covering the streets, I received an urgent call from Uncle Frank. The phone vibrated at midnight, the screen showing his name, making my heart race. Hello, Uncle, I answered, voice trembling with anxiety. Ethan, come to my house right now, he said, tone decisive but full of worry. It is urgent. Do not ask. Just come. I sat up, heart tightening. Are you okay? What is wrong? He sighed. You will know when you get here. Hurry, nephew. The call ended abruptly, leaving me in the darkness, anxiety surging. Had Dad done something to Uncle, or was there bad news about the family? I threw on clothes, drove the old pickup through deserted streets, cold wind whipping my face through the cracked window. The road to Uncle's house by the South Platte River stretched endlessly, each mile prolonging the worry. Uncle, please be okay, I whispered, hands gripping the steering wheel. Party images flashed back, Uncle standing protectively, Dad smirking. I parked in front of the small wooden house, lights blazing despite the late hour. Uncle opened the door immediately, face pale, eyes red as if he had not slept. Come in, kid, he said, voice low. I have something to show you. As I stepped inside, we sat at the old kitchen table. Uncle poured hot coffee, hands trembling. Nephew, I have been renovating your grandfather's old wooden house. Walter Carrington's, he recounted, voice slow but emotional. It has been abandoned for years on the outskirts of Denver. I thought I would fix it up to live in, but by chance I found an ancient wooden chest hidden carefully under the floor. My heart pounded hard, anxiety rising. What chest? Uncle. Why hidden under the floor? He took a deep breath. I was removing the rotten floorboards when I found a secret compartment. The chest was old lock rusted. I had to use a small crowbar to open it. Inside, he paused, retrieving a small wooden box from the cabinet and opening it. Inside was a yellowed, handwritten letter, along with a sealed stack of documents bearing Grandfather Walter's faded signature and seal. I picked them up, hands shaking. This is Grandfather's. Uncle nodded. Exactly. His signature. I recognized it immediately. But brace yourself before reading. Before reading the letter, memories of Grandfather flooded back. The image of the kind man who always smelled of machine oil, who took me around the factory when I was little. I remembered clearly at 6 years old, Grandfather hugging me. Ethan, grandson, come with me to see the factory. We walked around. He pointed at machines. This company only survives when people are honest, kid. Do not be like your father. Too ambitious. He smiled, his calloused hand ruffling my hair. You take after me, liking to tinker and fix. These hands will make something great. I laughed along. Grandpa, teach me to fix. He taught me simple screw, turning his voice warm. Patience, grandson. Honesty is the key. That memory was warm. But now it brought tears. Grandpa. Why did you leave so soon? He had died 15 years ago, suddenly from a heart attack, leaving the will to Dad for the entire company, or at least, that was what everyone thought. Now holding the letter, my heart pounded anxiously as if touching a buried past. I opened the letter. The old paper rustled. Grandfather's handwriting was shaky but clear. To my son Frank and grandson Ethan, it began startling me. Grandfather had written to Uncle and me. Walter wrote that he felt his life was threatened and suspected Robert, his eldest son, was secretly manipulating the will to seize full control of Carrington Holdings. "I have noticed Robert acting strangely, son," he wrote. "He visits more often, asks about the will, brings strange medicine. I suspect he wants all the assets. If I die suddenly, do not trust the announced will. It might be fake. If one day the truth is distorted, find my old secretary, Diane Porter. She holds the authentic documents and knows the whole story. Diane is loyal. She has copies. Find her. Bring the truth to light. Love you both, Walter." I read to the last line, heart pounding, a mix of shock and rage. Grandfather's words echoed back from the past. "Grandpa," I whispered, tears falling. Dad manipulated the will. You were threatened." Anxiety made it hard to breathe. I looked at Uncle. "Uncle, is this real, Dad?" Uncle Frank nodded, eyes red. "I have done a preliminary check. The signature and seal match exactly what I remember of him. But we need more evidence to confirm, perhaps an expert appraisal." We sat in silence, the small house's atmosphere heavy, only the sound of the South Platte River flowing gently outside. Uncle and nephew looked at each other, in our eyes pain and determination. "Uncle, what do we do?" I asked, voice trembling. He patted my shoulder. "We have to find Diane Porter, kid. We have just touched a secret buried for 15 years. The journey to seek justice for Walter Carrington officially begins. But be careful. Your uncle's brother will not let it slide if he finds out." My heart pounded wildly, as if it were about to leap out of my chest. Grandfather's letter lay on the table, the yellowed paper like a whisper from the grave, leaving me stunned to the point where my hands and feet turned ice cold. "Grandfather, you suspected my father of manipulating the will, even threatening your life," I whispered, my voice breaking with a mix of rage and fear. Uncle Frank nodded slowly, his face creased with pain. Grandfather wrote it clearly. "Robert, my brother has always been ambitious. From a young age he was jealous because grandfather loved me more, since I was like him, preferring manual labor over desk work. Now we have to prove it. But do not rush, son. We need a plan." We sat until dawn, the coffee growing cold on the table as we discussed every step. "First find Diane's address," Uncle said. "She was grandfather's secretary for 30 years. She knows everything. I still have his old address book." I nodded, anxiety surging. "If she confirms it, we will have evidence. But if Dad finds out, what will he do?" Uncle smiled sadly. "Robert will crush us like he always does. But this time we have grandfather on our side." His words gave me a bit of strength, but deep down I was afraid of facing the truth that my father could be a manipulator, or even worse. The next day we tracked down the old address of Diane Porter, who had worked for grandfather for many years. Uncle found it in grandfather's old notebook, a worn leather book full of handwritten notes. "She's in Fort Collins, the suburbs," Uncle said. 2 hours drive from Denver. I tried calling, but the old numbers were disconnected. "We have to go in person." I nodded. "Let's go, Uncle. I'll drive." The journey to Fort Collins was filled with anxiety, the highway winding through withered golden fields under the autumn sun. But my mind spun with questions. Is she still alive? What will she say? What if she refuses? I asked. Uncle Hans gripping the steering wheel. He sighed. "We have to convince her, and I believe she will tell the truth. She was very loyal to Grandfather Kidd." After hours of driving, we pulled up in front of a quaint little house in the suburbs of Fort Collins. We got out of the truck, my heart pounding like a drum. "Uncle, what if she does not open the door?" I whispered. Uncle knocked. "Diane, it's Frank Carrington." Slow footsteps sounded. Then the door opened a crack. Diane, now over 70, with snow-white hair and a frail body due to poor health, but her eyes were still sharp and alert. "Frank." "Oh my goodness, you're still well," she said emotionally, her voice trembling as she opened the door wide. And Ethan, you've grown so much. She hugged me, tears streaming. You look just like your grandfather, the hair, the calloused hands. We entered the house, the atmosphere cozy with the faint smell of baked goods. She sat on the old sofa, hands trembling as she held her teacup. Why have you two come here after all these years? Uncle Frank took out the letter, his voice serious. Mrs. Diane, we found this. It's from Walter. She took the letter, eyes widening, lips stammering, speechless. Diane, deeply moved, recounted with a trembling, emotional voice. After Walter passed away, Robert and the lawyer, Mr. Gregory Hale, called me to the office the very next day. They told me to sign a confirmation saying Walter had voluntarily made a new will before dying. I read it and my heart nearly stopped. It was clearly a forged document prepared in advance to legalize the fake will. Walter never changed his will. He was adamant about leaving it to Frank and grandson Ethan. She paused, wiping tears. I knew everything because I typed the real will, but they threatened my loss of job, loss of reputation, even threats to my life if I did not sign. I was scared, she whispered, clasping her trembling hands together in prayer. May God forgive my sin. My heart ached, anxiety rising. Mom, why did they do that? What was the real will like? She looked at me. Voice moved. The real will Walter signed left all shares to Frank because he believed Frank would uphold the company's values of honesty. And for you, Ethan, he included a clause for inheritance of a scholarship and a portion of assets upon adulthood. He said, you were like him, destined to achieve great things through honesty and perseverance. I clenched my fists, rage mixed with shock. So my father, he destroyed the original. She nodded, voice trembling. Yes. Robert and Gregory destroyed the original right after the funeral, then replaced it with the fake will stating all assets were transferred to Robert to maintain the company. They forced me to confirm it, and I was cowardly. For 15 years I have been tormented but afraid of Robert. He is too powerful. Uncle Frank asked, Do you still have a copy? Diane admitted she once kept a notarized copy in her personal safe, but years ago her house was burglarized and that document was lost. I suspect it was not an ordinary theft, she whispered. Perhaps Robert knew and hired someone, but now I have nothing, just my account. Though she no longer had the copy, her account matched perfectly with the contents of Walter's letter, giving us grounds to expand the investigation. Thank you, Mom, I said, voice choked. You are so brave. She hugged me. Do it, grandson, for Walter. He deserves to rest in peace. On the way back, uncle and nephew began facing the reality that this fight was not just about finding evidence, but about overturning an entire past concealed by power and money. Robert will not stop, Uncle said, voice low. He has money, lawyers. We only have the truth, I replied, heart racing. But we have to continue, Uncle, for grandfather. Uncle nodded, eyes gazing far toward the South Platte River shimmering under the setting sun. Yes, nephew, but be careful. He will sniff it out. We need more evidence. Solid, undeniable. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, anxiety surging like waves. Diane's words still echoed. Robert threatened me, destroyed the original. And now we were walking into the tiger's den. I will not let him win, I whispered, voice trembling with rage. Uncle patted my shoulder. I believe in you. But patience, Ethan. That is what grandfather taught us. The following days were a nightmare of anxiety. We returned to Denver trying to live normally. I went to work fixing wiring. Uncle still showed up at the maintenance shop, but our minds were always stretched taut like a wire. Every morning I checked the truck before driving, afraid of anything unusual. Too paranoid, I laughed at myself, but then remembered Uncle's words. Better safe than sorry. We met secretly at his house, analyzing Diane's account, listing next steps. Authenticate the letter signature, Uncle said, and the will announced in court. I nodded. I will file the request. But deep down, fear crept in. What if Dad found out? He had eyes and ears everywhere in Carrington Holdings. A few days later, everything exploded. Early morning Uncle called me, voice panicked. "Ethan, come to my house now." I rushed over, heart pounding. Uncle stood at the door, holding an anonymous white envelope, face pale. "This slipped under the door at midnight," he whispered, handing it to me. Inside was a typed note. "Stop now before it is too late." All caps, no signature, but enough to freeze my blood. Who sent it?" I asked, voice shaking. Uncle shook his head. "No idea. But clearly Robert knows we are digging." Anxiety surged. I looked around. The street was empty, but why did I feel watched? "Uncle, we are in danger," I whispered. Uncle squeezed my hand. "Yes, but do not be afraid. This is proof he is panicking." It did not end there. The next morning I went out to the truck to go to work. The old pickup parked in front of the house and found the tires, flat windshield shattered and the paint scratched with crude letters. "Stop." My heart constricted, anxiety choking me. Strangers trashed my truck, I called. "Uncle," my voice breaking. He replied over the phone. "Definitely not random." My mailbox today was full of junk messages, anonymous letters. In the middle of bustling Denver streets, I felt hunted. Dad did this," I asked, rage mixed with fear. Uncle nodded. "Or hired someone. He knows we met Diane Porter. He has been watching us since the party he suspected." I clenched my fists. I want to confront Dad now, face to face, force him to admit it. But Uncle shook his head, voice firm. "Not yet, Ethan. Do not rush. We need solid evidence. Meeting now will only make him more guarded and more dangerous for us." I listened to Uncle, though my blood boiled. "Fine, we will follow the plan." I filed the request to re-examine Grandfather's will that same week. I went to the Denver County Court, hands trembling as I held the petition. Request for digital signature verification technology on the will, announced upon Walter Carrington's death. The court clerk looked at me strangely. "What is your reason?" I swallowed hard, replying, "I suspect the signature on my grandfather's will is forged." The days waiting for the results were mental torture. I thought I could not survive. I tossed and turned sleeplessly. When I dozed off briefly, Grandfather's image appeared as if urging me to stay strong. Finally, the results arrived. A thick envelope from the forensics lab. We opened it at Uncle's house, hands shaking. "The signature is forged," the report stated clearly. Copied from an older document, not Walter Carrington's authentic handwriting. 97% match with simulated sample. I froze, then shouted, "It is fake. The will Dad announced is fake." Uncle hugged me, tears streaming. Grandfather was right. Robert manipulated it. This discovery left us stunned but strengthened our belief that we were on the right path. "Now we have scientific proof," Uncle said. "Undeniable." Anxiety turned to determination. We pressed on. While reviewing financial records Uncle secretly obtained from company archives, I checked old bank statements through friend connections. We found a bank statement showing Thomas Grant Roberts' lawyer received a large sum right after Walter's funeral, $600,000. Uncle read, voice trembling, transferred from Robert's personal account noted as consulting fees. My heart pounded. Bribery to destroy the real will. Uncle nodded. Exactly. Thomas was his pawn. This discovery was like a bomb. "Do we have enough evidence yet?" "Uncle," I asked, anxious. Frank concluded we had sufficient legal grounds to forward the file to the prosecutor. Grandfather's letter, Diane's testimony, signature verification, bank statement. We can sue Uncle, said for will forgery, perhaps more. I told Uncle I want to confront Dad one last time. Force him to admit it in front of the family. Jason Nicole. Mom, I need to hear him say it. Uncle looked at me for a long time, then asked, Are you sure it is dangerous? I nodded, voice firm. I am sure, Uncle, this is not only justice, it is to escape that disgrace shadow. Frank understood me and agreed to come along because he knew this was not just a confrontation, but the moment that would define who I truly am. All right, nephew, he said. I will go with you, but prepare yourself. Robert will not admit easily. That Saturday arrived faster than I expected. We drove my old pickup truck to Carrington Manor, a massive estate on the outskirts of Denver where I grew up, but never felt I belonged. The familiar road lined with towering oaks now made me anxious to the point where my hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles turning white. Uncle, I am so nervous, I whispered. Frank sat beside me, voice reassuring. We have the truth on our side, Ethan. Grandfather will protect us. The tall iron gate opened when the guard recognized us, but his eyes were cold, as if saying we were not welcome here. I drove past him, parking in front of the wide granite steps where perfectly trimmed potted plants stood under the weak afternoon sunlight. I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the trembling inside, and stepped onto the porch. The front door opened and Robert Carrington stood there. My father, with his familiar arrogance and eyes cold as a blade, he did not greet us with a warm smile, just stood still like a statue of power. He wore a glossy black suit, silver hair slicked back, a scornful smile on his lips. Frank Ethan, he said, voice drawn out with sarcasm, without a hint of warmth. Long time no see. Come in, though I did not invite you. He did not shake hands, no greeting, just a disdainful wave as if we were unwanted guests. I swallowed hard, following Uncle into the grand foyer where the enormous crystal chandelier illuminated expensive paintings on the walls. The scent of luxury perfume mixed with polished wood made me dizzy, evoking memories of those cold family dinners long ago. Jason and Nicole were not there. Perhaps at the office, or worse, avoiding us while my mother sat on a distant sofa, head bowed low, twisting the hem of her simple black dress. She glanced at me briefly, eyes red, but said nothing, as always choosing silence to avoid conflict. We sat in the vast living room where the glossy walnut table reflected the lights. I placed the document briefcase on the table, hands trembling slightly with anxiety. Dad? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We have something to discuss. Robert sat at the head of the table, legs crossed, smug smile still on his lips. What is it? Begging for a job again, Ethan? Or does Frank want a promotion to head of maintenance? He mocked, voice echoing in the quiet room. Uncle Frank spoke first, voice calm but firm. That is not it, brother. This is about Grandfather Walter. Robert raised an eyebrow, expression unchanged. Walter. He died 15 years ago. Why dig up the grave now? I took a deep breath, pulling the signature verification results from the briefcase and sliding them across the table. The will you announced is forged, I said, voice trembling with rising rage. The signature was copied from an old document, not Grandfather's real handwriting. Robert picked up the paper, glanced at it quickly, then suddenly burst into laughter. His laugh echoed through the room, cold and full of contempt, making my heart constrict. Forged digital recognition technology, he repeated, voice drawn out with sarcasm. With money and power, I can make any result disappear. You think that lab is independent? I can buy them all. Judges, experts, the press. Carrington is mine, and nothing will change that. He threw the paper onto the table, scattering it across the marble floor. I froze, rage surging like fire in my chest. Dad, how can you say that? I asked, voice breaking with shock. This is about Grandfather, your own father. He was harmed, and you know it. We have Diane's testimony bank statements to Thomas, all proving you manipulated the will." My father stood up, eyes flashing with anger hidden beneath arrogance. He denied every accusation, voice rising and defiant. Handwritten letter. Diane's. Testimony all fabricated. She is senile. Did you coerce her? And the bank statement to Thomas. That is legitimate consulting fees. Do you have proof I bribed him? Nothing. You and Frank are just failures trying to steal my share with cheap slander. Uncle Frank interjected, voice still calm but sharp. Brother, you know Diane was loyal to Walter, and Thomas received $600,000 right after the funeral. That is no coincidence. You destroyed the real will to seize the company. Robert laughed louder, the sound booming like thunder. Coincidence or not, prove it. Remember, no one challenges me and comes out unscathed. He challenged us, stepping closer to me, hot breath on my face. What do you want, Ethan? Money, a menial job? Or are you still the disgrace seeking revenge for that party I gave you a chance to live separately, yet you come back to bite? Then he turned away, coldly waving us off like flies. Get out. Do not come back here. He left us standing there in the room full of arrogance and walked upstairs, his shoes echoing like a final verdict, leaving deadly silence. I stood still, stunned. Dad, he feels no remorse, I whispered, voice breaking with pain and disappointment. Uncle Frank gently pulled my arm. Let us go, Ethan. He will not admit it. We have tried. We walked out of the mansion, cold wind whipping our faces, carrying the scent of withered autumn leaves. On the way back, the atmosphere in the truck was heavy. Only the engine's hum and rain pattering on the windshield. Frank realized this fight was no longer just about inheritance, but a battle between justice and a force that had existed for years. Your uncle's brother. He did not just steal the will, Uncle Frank said, voice low with pain. He built an entire empire on lies and power. We are fighting not just one man, but the whole system he created. Money connections and the fear he instills in everyone around him. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, voice trembling with anxiety and rage. But we have the truth, Uncle. We have to continue. Uncle nodded, eyes looking out at the rain-streaked window. Yes, but the cost will be higher than we think. He will not let it slide. In the following days, I plunged in like a madman. I contacted the hospital investigating grandfather's medical records before his death. Hospital staff refused to help. Old records are sealed. Only the court can unseal them. But I did not stop. I searched old employee lists, scoured social media, asked friends who once worked there. Every call, every search made me anxious, heart pounding, palms sweating. Find the nurse who cared for grandfather, Uncle Frank advised. She must know something. Finally, I found Emma Brooks, the former nurse now retired in a quiet suburb. She cared for grandfather in his final months, Uncle Frank confirmed. I drove to her house alone, heart pounding under heavy rain. The road was pitch-black headlights illuminating puddles reflecting the fear in my heart. Emma's house was a small bungalow. Garden flowers wilted in the rain. I knocked rain dripping from the eaves. She opened the door, face wrinkled white hair, eyes cloudy with age. "Who is it?" she asked, voice trembling with caution. I introduced myself. "I am Ethan Carrington, Walter Carrington's grandson. I need to ask about my grandfather." She paled, gripping the doorframe tightly. "Walter. All right, come in and we will talk." We sat in the cramped living room, the faint scent of herbal tea in the air. She poured water, hands shaking. "Why are you here? Walter died long ago. What do you want from an old woman like me?" I began asking, voice careful. "Do you remember grandfather's final days?" He had heart disease, but was there anything unusual? At first, Emma evaded, voice anxious and dodging. "Records have been sealed for years, kid. I do not remember anything. Walter had natural heart failure. died normally. She looked out at the rain-streaked window as if afraid someone was watching. I grew anxious, heart pounding harder. "Mom, I know you cared for him directly. Did anyone visit at night? Any strange medicine?" She shook her head vigorously. "No, I do not remember. Do not ask any more. I am old." My memories faded, but I did not stop. I pulled Grandfather Walter's handwritten letter and Diane Porter's testimony from the briefcase, sliding them across the table. "Look at this," I said, voice firm. "Grandfather suspected he was harmed," Diane said. Robert forced a fake will signing. What do you know about his medicine? I beg you to tell the truth." Her face paled, hands trembling as she held the papers. "Oh, Lord Walter's handwriting." "Diane." She told the truth. She slumped into the chair, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. Finally, she confessed, voice whispering with pain. I did not want to remember, but I admit I switched the medicine under Robert's orders. He often came to the hospital at night when everyone was asleep. He gave me a special vial, instructing me to give only that to Walter because it is better for the heart than hospital medicine." She paused, voice breaking. "I suspected, but he promised worthy compensation. Big money enough to care for my sick daughter." In the following days, Walter weakened visibly. Then he died suddenly. I knew I was wrong, but feared losing my job, feared Robert's power too much. He said if I stayed silent, everything would be fine. Then Emma retrieved an old bank statement from the cabinet, voice trembling. "Here, $600,000 transferred to my account right after the funeral." He said, "Thanks for excellent care, but I knew it was hush money. I have been tormented for 15 years begging God for forgiveness. You forgive me?" Her confession left me stunned. I understood my father did not just forge the will, but directly caused Grandfather's death. I sat there, the world spinning, tears streaming uncontrollably. Dad killed Grandfather." I whispered, voice breaking with shock. The image of Dad smirking at the mansion flashed back, doubling the pain. How could he? For power, for money. Memories of kind Grandfather flooded back, making my eyes sting. I bid farewell to Emma and immediately drove to Uncle Frank's house. Upon hearing what I had uncovered from her, Uncle Frank put his arm around my shoulder, voice low and pained. "We have the truth now. It is time for justice to speak." We sat there under the rain outside the window, our determination burning brighter than ever. The following weeks were a whirlwind. We worked tirelessly with the lawyer, Mr. Andrew Cohen, a neutral one we hired from Chicago to avoid any ties to Carrington. "This is a big case," he said, eyes gleaming. "Will, forgery, bribery, murder enough to topple an empire." We filed the lawsuit at Denver County Court, attaching the full dossier. Grandfather Walter's original letter, signature verification results, Diane Porter's testimony, Emma Brooks' statement, bank statements of transfers to lawyer Thomas Grant, and the old medicine vial Emma had kept. Each document was like a bullet, but I was still anxious. What if Dad uses money and power to bribe the judge? Uncle Frank reassured. "We have scientific evidence, toxins, and the medicine." Undeniable. The trial against Robert Carrington opened at Denver County Court 1 month later, drawing attention from media and businesses across the state. On the opening morning, the courtroom was packed. Reporters, business people, Carrington employees, even politicians. Camera flashes popped incessantly outside. Uncle Frank and I entered in simple black suits, briefcases in hand. Robert sat in the defendant's chair, gray suit, face impassive but eyes red. The first time I saw him vulnerable, Jason and Nicole sat behind faces ashen. The judge, Judge Patricia Morgan, renowned for her strictness, banged the gavel. Court is in session. The prosecutor, Mr. Aaron Kelly, opened. defendant Robert Carrington committed premeditated murder document forgery bribery. We will prove he poisoned his own father to seize the company. The courtroom buzzed. Uncle Frank and I submitted the full dossier. Kelly presented each item. Walter Carrington's letter written before death suspecting his eldest son. He read aloud. I feel my life is threatened. The room fell silent. Next signature verification, 97% simulated. Then Emma's statement. Switched medicine under Robert's orders. During the trial, Diane Porter was called first. She walked slowly to the stand, white hair leaning on the rail, voice trembling but clear. I was Walter Carrington's secretary for 30 years. After the funeral, Robert and Thomas Grant summoned me to the office. They forced me to sign a confirmation claiming Walter voluntarily made a new will before dying, but it was forged. I typed the real will, leaving main shares to Frank, a scholarship, and assets to Ethan upon adulthood. They threatened job loss reputation if I did not sign. I was scared, so I signed silently. She cried. Walter was kind. He did not deserve this. I have regretted it for 15 years. The courtroom murmured, flashes popping. My father's defense lawyer, Mr. Stephen Walsh, countered fiercely. But Diane stood firm. Next, Emma Brooks trembled to the witness stand, in a simple gray coat gripping the rail, voice breaking with fear. I was Walter Carrington's night nurse at St. Bridget Medical Center. Robert often came at night unseen. He gave me a special vial instructing, give only this to my father. It is better for the heart than hospital medicine. I suspected, but he promised worthy compensation. Big money later. I switched the medicine. The next morning, Walter weakened visibly, then died suddenly. She sobbed. After the funeral, $600,000 transferred to my account. He said, thanks for excellent care, but I knew it was hush money. I have been tormented, begging God for forgiveness. The courtroom fell dead silent. I clenched my fists. Uncle Frank beside me hugged my shoulder. Stay calm, son. Meanwhile, my father was pale, gripping his chair, but silent. The defense tried to deny unsubstantiated testimony. Old medicine who proves poison. But the prosecution presented independent lab toxicology results. Cardiac toxin high dose in Emma's vial. All counter-arguments collapsed. After 4 days of intense arguments, the court declared my father, Robert Carrington, guilty on 3 serious counts: premeditated murder, legal document forgery, witness bribery. The sentence rang out. Life imprisonment without parole, confiscation of illicit assets, revocation of inheritance rights for Robert and his children. The courtroom erupted in shouts and cheers. Uncle Frank was recognized as Walter's sole legal heir, taking over Carrington Holdings. As police led Robert away, he turned to look at Ethan, eyes a mix of regret and emptiness. Ethan's son, he whispered, voice breaking for the first time. I stood still, saying nothing. Heart aching but cold. He was handcuffed, walking out of the courtroom, his once powerful figure now diminished. Newspapers headlined Carrington trial. Justice illuminated after 15 years. Outside the court, flashes popped endlessly. Reporters swarmed. Ethan, how do you feel about your father's conviction? I bowed my head slightly. No answer. I knew grandfather could finally rest in peace. Uncle Frank pulled me to the truck. Let us go home, son. Our future is just beginning. In the truck, I looked out at bustling Denver, tears falling. Grandfather justice has come. But the cost. My father in life, prison family shattered. Made me realize justice is not free, but it brings freedom. After my father was sentenced, Uncle Frank officially became the legal heir and was granted control of Carrington Holdings by the court. Once the verdict was read, the court immediately froze my father's illicit assets, the Manor personal stocks offshore accounts, and transferred control to Uncle. The next morning, Uncle received the chairman's office keys from the court lawyer. "I never wanted this chair," he said to me on the way to headquarters, "but grandfather entrusted it." I nodded. "You will do better than Dad." Carrington Holdings, the empire once built on ambition and lies, was now in the hands of a man familiar only with the smell of machine oil and wrenches. In the first week, Uncle began reforms. At an emergency board meeting, he stated firmly, "Anyone who covered up Robert's wrongdoing, leave Carrington today." 10 senior executives, 3 of Dad's confidants, were fired without compensation. "This is not revenge," Uncle told the entire company. "It is cleansing." Grandfather Walter dreamed of an honest and humane Carrington. "We will rebuild from there." Applause thundered. Many were moved. I stood backstage, both proud and anxious. Uncle was truly changing an empire. Frank called me to the company on the third day. We sat in his new office, an old wooden desk he brought from the garage. No luxurious leather chairs. "Ethan," he said, eyes bright, "I need you. Junior manager in strategic development. You will learn to lead with integrity, not power." I froze. "I am just an electrician, Uncle." He smiled warmly. "Hands that fix wires can fix a company. Grandfather believed in you." I accepted heart-pounding from disgrace to manager in months. I adapted quickly, hard-working and humble. First day in a white shirt, I entered the modern office with the new Carrington logo. Uncle changed it to a hand holding a wrench symbolizing labor. Colleagues stared. "Ethan Carrington, chairman's nephew." I smiled. "Just a new employee." I learned fast. Strategy meetings project analysis proposing green ideas from repair experience. Instead of luxury high-rises, I presented invest in renewable energy for workers. Uncle Frank nodded. "That is the new Carrington. Each day under his guidance redeemed the family honor." "I am no longer a failure," I whispered nightly, looking at callous hands now holding a pen instead of a wrench. Uncle Frank and I reshaped the company from operating philosophy employee treatment to community activities under the Walter Carrington Foundation. Uncle Frank changed the slogan, "Honesty, Integrity, Humanity." Employee salaries rose 18%. Full insurance, no arbitrary firings. "Employees are assets," Uncle Frank said at a press conference. The Walter Carrington Fund launched scholarships for workers' children. Free repair skill training. As Grandfather taught, Uncle Frank said at the training center ribbon cutting, "Value lies in hands that create." I managed the fund organizing classes. Kids do not fear dirty hands. That is strength. Students cheered. I smiled. First time Carrington did good. Meanwhile, Jason and Nicole, stripped of inheritance rights and rejecting the new model, voluntarily resigned. They came to Uncle Frank's office privately, faces pale. Jason, "We cannot work under this model." Nicole, "Too idealistic, unrealistic." Uncle Frank nodded. "Your choice." They left Denver the next week, Jason to Florida for a small firm, Nicole to New York with her husband. Their departure was announced internally. No one was surprised. It was the natural end for those who lived only for self-interest. They chose a different path, Uncle Frank said. We respect it. I held no grudge, only relief. One afternoon, as the sun set red outside the office window, Linda, my mother, visited. She knocked, face-aged, eyes weary but regretful. "Ethan," she whispered, voice trembling. I stood. "Mom, come in." She sat, twisting her dress. "I am proud of you. You are strong, not swallowed by the past. I am sorry for silent, weak years. I was wrong." Tears fell. "I loved your father blindly, overlooked you. Forgive me." I said little, just nodded silently, then walked her to the door. "No hate, only the calm of one who had overcome pain. "Take care, Mom," I said. She hugged me one last time. "You are my pride." Back in the office, I looked at Grandfather's old photo on the desk and smiled. For the first time in years, the name Carrington was no longer a burden, but pride. "Grandfather, we did it," I whispered, looking out the window. Denver lighting up. Carrington Holdings glowing with the new logo. A new life began. Not perfect, but honest. And that was Grandfather Walter's true legacy. I decided to share my story not to boast, but to inspire. Uncle Frank nodded when I proposed it. "Go ahead, nephew." Grandfather would be proud. We organized an internal talk in the grand auditorium of Carrington Holdings, the very place where the humiliating party had once taken place. Hundreds of employees filled the seats, from maintenance technicians to new senior executives. Stage lights illuminated a simple wooden podium, no glittering crystal. I stepped up, heart-pounding like my first day on the job, but this time it was the anxiety of hope. Today I began, voice slightly trembling but gradually steadying. I am not speaking as a manager, but as Ethan, the one once called the disgrace of the family. The core message I want to convey: life is not about where you are born or your starting status, but how you choose to live and rise after failure. A person's true value lies in hands that work honestly, not in titles or inherited wealth. I recounted the humiliating party, my father's voice echoing a disgrace to the family line. The entire auditorium fell silent. Some bowed their heads. At that moment, I just wanted to disappear. But that pain forged me. Do not let criticism define you. Let your actions speak. The lesson I learned most deeply: never let humiliation or others' criticism define you. I detailed: from childhood, Dad called me unlike anyone in the family because I loved fixing toy cars. Jason mocked. "You are just a mechanic." Nicole chimed in. "Rich kid playing dirty." Mom stayed silent. Those words cut like knives, making me withdraw. But now I understand they spoke of their own fears, not me. I once bowed my head at the party face, burning, unable to retort. But that moment taught me: humiliation is only strong if you let it be. Stand up as Uncle Frank did, standing in front of me, declaring, "No one has the right to humiliate a person just because of their status." I paused, looking around. Some employees wiped tears. This lesson is for anyone ever looked down upon for manual work, for not being wealthy, for not being worthy. Do not let them define you. You are worthy because you are honest, because you try. In closing, I wanted to send a message to everyone. Learn to listen and uplift those around you, no matter their position. If you see someone being humiliated, be the first to stand up, as my uncle did. In the new Carrington, we treat everyone fairly, from security guards to directors. Listen to the janitors, the technicians. They are the heart of the company. And if you are at rock bottom, remember, your hands can fix anything from a broken car to a shattered